Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucci, here with my humble assistant, the boy. His appearance is quite disturbing, but I assure you he's harmless enough. In all seriousness, once again, this is another one of our spooky Halloween episodes. Before we get started, I just need to remind you to like, comment, favorite, subscribe, circulate those links around. It really helps us out. Also, if you could go to Super Blizzard's Bandcamp page, check out his Shining Was Auto tracks, and really anything the guy does, because he's super cool. Let's Get Hardcore is one of his songs. That's our theme music. And he gave it to us out of the goodness of his heart. So, out of the goodness of your heart, float the guy a couple bucks. He's an independent worker like us. But today, we are discussing a topic that you might not expect from this show. This is actually going to be like a pretty PG-13 as far as the two nerds goes.
Yeah, this will probably be our cleanest podcast to date, I would imagine.
That's right, listener. We are scrubbed and showered. And we are talking about the 2010 series, Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated.
We're actually talking about this series because we love it.
Yeah.
And thought that our listener might be interested in it as well if you hadn't already seen it, Ultimo Dragon.
But before we get too deep into actually discussing it, we do have a special guest here today. A longtime Scooby-Doo fan from when you were, 7 years old?
Yes.
She is also my mother, Marilyn.
Hi.
We're happy to have her, and is it cool to have your mom on a podcast? I think so.
Kevin Smith agrees with you.
My mom said it was cool, so whatever. But yeah, I'm kind of the genesis of this. Well, you are, Internet, but I'd seen stuff about this series on Tumblr. I read an article about it back at the Cereal Box, I think is the website. Decent guide, decent articles, if you want to check that out. And it kept talking up how revolutionary this series was in terms of, Cartoon Network Scooby-Doo shows. And how good it was. And, I saw stuff from David Willis and all kinds of people just worshiping the show. And I'm like, all right, the last time you assholes told me about something, it was My Little Pony. And we see where that went. So let's take a look into Mystery Incorporated. Let's see what it's about. The first season was on Netflix, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Gogi's going to be playing around in the background, so get used to that noise, listener. Yeah, it ended up being really surprisingly good, so I dragged the boy into it, and as I said, my mother's a longtime Scooby-Doo fan, so I said, you need to watch this. And she's here with her thoughts as well, and her Scooby-Doo t-shirt, in celebration of all the do that's about to happen.
Yeah, it's a very good intro. Watching the series was a really fun experience because it was the kind of series you could tell was made with a huge amount of love for the original material.
Yes. All the little references. When we talked about the Ninja Turtles movie, or if you've seen any of the theories online, that a better parody or a better homage is made when it's made with love. And there's so much dedication and loyalty to the original material in this show. Even up till the end, when everything gets super crazy. We're going to do spoiler-free for a little while. We'll let you know when that divide gets crossed. But, I think it was the last episode, for 2 seconds on screen, the entire original cast is running away from a monster, using
the typical order.
Yeah, using the exact style of their walk cycles from the original series. It's one of those blink and you miss it kind of references to the original that are just fantastic. And this show is loaded with references. I compared it favorably to Batman the Animated Series. For a number of reasons. Primarily, it doesn't talk down to its audience. It doesn't treat kids like they're stupid or like they don't deserve to have interesting and realistic plot lines. I use the term realistic loosely. But, Batman the Animated Series has Killer Croc, and we were like, no, this is very real. The stories are real. The personalities are real. The interactions are very real. And it wasn't a lot of fluff. And the jokes are snappy. They make references to everything from forgotten 60s kaiju films to Saturday Night Live sketches.
And references throughout to all the Scooby-Doo media.
Oh,
There's references to, like, the original series, to the new Scooby-Doo movies, to the Scooby-Doo movies where he was racing Dracula in a boxcar race or whatever.
The wacky racers.
And all the way up to the real early 2000s animated films.
And the early 2000s animated series is. There's a point where Scooby and Shaggy are like, they take a little jab at the vegetarianism that Shaggy briefly went through in one of the other series while he was still being voiced by...
Casey Kasem?
Yeah, Casey Kasem.
Because Casey's a vegetarian, and so he wanted Shaggy to be one.
Which I thought was cool, and I thought it was cool that the show's directors, ended up going with that for a while. I thought that was nice.
Mm-hmm. Rather than just the two of us jabber on like idiots for an hour... Marilyn, what was your first impression of the series? What were your big thoughts on it?
Well, I did love it. Seeing, when I watched it as a child and growing up, showed it to my children, loved that. I thought it really did stick to the original.
Yeah.
And
that's something nice, too. I didn't realize it until someone on the internet pointed it out to me, but Scooby-Doo, even the original series, kind of put that thought into your mind that, ghosts and monsters and minor 49ers aren't the bad guys. It's people you have to look out for, and adults who are just lying to you to get you to believe what they want to believe so they can do whatever they want to do.
right.
These bad people, these bad adults, not all adults, I should clarify.
Yeah, this isn't Peter Pan Cast.
And, the monsters, they took off the masks, and it was Old Man Dithers, and... And yeah, I mean, even back then, what was that? I've got it pulled up here. Original run of the series was from 1969 to 1970.
Fun fact, I was looking up trivia for this when we were starting the podcast, and the backstories they gave the characters in this show, the families they had, the fact how Shaggy's parents were, all that stuff. That was all in the original concept for the 60s series, for the first run. It was in
Really?
It was in all the concept art. The original concept art included all this stuff. It just never made it on screen. So they took a bunch of the stuff that was included and then updated it and, worked with it to make it more modern for the series. All the base concepts came from that original concept art from the 60s series.
That's really cool.
It is.
And I know they borrowed a lot of stuff from the, even a pup named Scooby Doo, which is a little underrated.
Just a little, though.
Yeah, just a little. It's not that good, but I liked it a lot when I was younger. But yeah, and they managed to keep that. I know for a long time, especially in the Scooby Doo movies, the more recent ones, the monsters were always real, supernatural. They were just trying to turn the whole thing on its head. Scooby Doo had to fight the ancient dragon or the Jay Leno pumpkin or whatever.
Jay Leno pumpkin.
And that was cute and everything, but you kind of got tired of it. It was like that's not really Scooby.
It's all right if Scooby Doo faces an actual supernatural thing occasionally, but most of them should be Old Man Dinners.
And when all we were having at that time was Scooby Doo movies, for all of them to be, supernatural, I thought it was a little weak. It just didn't have the spirit of the original. This captured it so well. And, at first, when I first watched it, the first episode going in, they kind of hit you with a truck. Because you're like, oh, okay, cool, new Scooby-Doo show. Right off the bat, you find out that Shaggy and Velma are in a secret relationship.
They don't want Scooby to know about. Which is great.
It ends up being pretty good. The art style is different enough from the 60s incarnation. They played with their outfits a little bit, but for the most part, they've stayed.
For most of
To the form.
Yeah.
the outfits are similar.
Well, and the
just-
shapes more so are similar. This one uses a very different art style, which they play with in a later episode.
But it's still Scooby.
Yeah, it's still Scooby. It hits you with that little bit of, okay, this is different. And it smacks you with a few concepts that you kind of have to accept before you move on with this series. This is going to be darker than you remembered. I mean, it's not like, it doesn't get like criminally dark until near the end of the series, but, it's less sunshine and lollipops constantly. And it tells you, we're going to be interacting with these characters as people, not just as
mystery solvers.
Right. But that is a big, important thing. The characterization isn't far off. Really, the person who gets the most new characterization is Fred. And I love Fred in this series.
Which is probably a good move, because I think you both can back me up on this. Fred was probably the lightest character in the original series.
He was
I agree.
kind of the Leonardo.
Yeah, he was mostly just the leader.
Good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Mostly just there to be the leader and tell people, we're all going to split up and look for clues.
I think he was the mature one, too.
Yeah,
back
that
then.
might be true.
And that he was kind of the one who's like, hey, guys, get it together and let's do this. We need to solve the mystery. Don't act like kids. Not really to the point of being a downer, but just the voice of reason, I guess, when Shaggy and Scooby are acting like idiots.
He was the counterpoint to Shaggy and Scooby.
Yeah. Whereas in this series,
he's delightfully
off the
silly.
rails.
He's as delightfully silly as the rest of the cast, probably more so than anyone except maybe Scooby. Even Shaggy's more down to earth than him at this point.
I don't know, man. Scooby. He gets pretty dark sometimes.
Oh.
There's this delightful trope. They don't touch on it too much in the series, but every time it shows up, I feel great. And that's, if you mess with Scooby-Doo's friends, especially Shaggy, he will end you.
And it's not a comical, he gets all mad and goes puppy power and charges people like Scrappy-Doo. No, he gets his voice drops a register, he gets mad, and he goes Rambo on you. It's hilarious.
But, as somebody who was a little more fond of the traditional, maybe, was that a major turnoff at first? The way the show was kind of like, look, I'm putting this up front.
No.
No, not at all?
No.
That's cool. That's cool.
Because it was still them.
Yeah.
But just with a twist, a modern twist. And I that's one thing that I liked about it.
Just the updating in general?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's actually really cool.
I mentioned the art style was different, and it's not just in the character models, which if you Google search it real quick, the difference between the 60s, 70s Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Incorporated Scooby-Doo models, you can see what I'm talking about. But the background art was legitimately spooky.
Yeah, well, that's not really a huge departure, because the original series had sort of a limited budget to work with,
Well,
but if you look at some of the matte paintings from that original series, it was legitimately spooky stuff they were running around in.
Late 60s spooky.
Yeah, late 60s spooky, and this updated it to a more modern thing, but I like that they kept a lot of the original atmosphere. They emphasized it a little more, and I think that's what you're getting.
Yeah, the way the art style was just really kind of, I don't want to say abstract necessarily, but creative. They used paint splotches and patterns and stuff to create atmosphere instead of what the last couple of series have done, and that's just make it look like a uniform world.
Right, I think that's one of the reasons they came up with the pup named Scooby-Doo. That was for younger children.
Yeah.
They couldn't deal with the scariness.
The actual real 60s level
Yeah.
scariness in the actual series.
Right.
So they made a nice, light, soft kids show version.
Well, that was the big thing during that era with the Muppet Babies and the,
Right.
baby Looney Tunes. And
I've had many people tell me that their children could not watch Scooby. They were so afraid.
Really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
In a good way, not like in a
right.
stupid kids way.
Well, right.
No, yeah, it's important that shows don't treat kids with kid gloves. I forget who said it. It was someone very influential in works of children's horror, like Roald Dahl or someone said you can do whatever you want in a children's story. You can make it terrifying, you can make it sad, what have you. So long as the ending is all right, kids will be fine.
I'm being attacked by a cat. Speaking of terrifying and sad, and that's poignant words that our feline has just crapped on.
It's all right. He craps on so much stuff, mostly the cat box.
Yeah, that's. Again, allusions to Batman the Animated Series. And you remember when I was growing up, I'd always sit down in front of the TV after school to watch Batman.
Yeah.
My brother and I, we played together. It was Batman stuff,
I'm reading episode guides, listener. I'm sorry. I forgot about the ghost truck.
The ghost truck was pretty cool. The ghost truck, they did what Supernatural failed to do. Hardcore. And it's his Scooby Doo, where a stupid music sting going along with the horn of the creepy ghost truck would have been acceptable. No, that episode had a ridiculously awesome car chase. This series is made of ridiculously awesome car chases. Like, we stopped watching it for a while because other stuff came up, basically. And we watched, like, the last 6 episodes 2 nights ago. And, maybe 7. And, like, the first one we watched, there's this crazy, awesome car chase. And Boy's like, what is going on? I'm like, did you forget?
I kind of did. I forgot how amazing this series was for its animation.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the actual animation itself, and not necessarily even the risk they took so much as the skill with which they pulled off what they were trying was pretty astounding, to be honest.
It's the care and the dedication. And this is something a little bit aside from Scooby-Doo. People praise hand-drawn animation, and it's great. But it takes forever. There are shortcuts you have to take so that, you can put out a product. Reusing frames, when the artist colors something more brightly so that they remember that's the thing that's going to move in the panel. The cell painting as opposed to the matte painting. And I guarantee you this was made in Flash. In fact, I'll go take a look. But everybody always criticizes Flash animation for being lazy. You can do so much with it. And if you're actually trying, facial expressions, movements, subtlety, is all able to be reinforced. I mean, it might lack some of that traditional, animator's soul, if you will, that the hand-drawn stuff possessed. But, go back and watch those 60s Scooby-Doo cartoons in the 70s. They're not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but they have, 5 poses? I mean, there was a reason as Marilyn silently nods like, yeah.
Yeah, just about 5.
It's great stuff. I'm not criticizing it in the least. They did the best they could with what they had. But you hear so many people getting on Flash animation's back because it's easier. And
now they can make the traps so much better.
Well, yeah. And for a show that smooth and seamlessly blended CGI with animation, Futurama tried it, didn't quite pull it off. They do it so impressively here.
Yeah, so much so that I could always sort of tell when it was CGI, but it fit the art style. It fit the style of the show, and I think that's the most important thing.
Really, there was the only time that it really stood out for me was in the second to last episode. There was a spooky creature that was sort of stood out. That was the only
but
time
I think that was intentional.
Criminal.
To be honest.
And it might have been. It did evoke a otherworldly sort of presence.
And that was sort of the idea.
Now the voice acting as well bears mentioning because it's a different cast. All but one person.
We have the original Fred. Fred Welker, I believe?
Frank Welker.
Frank Welker. I have it up here. I just was looking at the screen.
I like voice acting, so I know the guy's name.
The original actor's in a lot of secondary roles.
He does Scooby too, as well, I believe, Frank Welker.
Oh, I'll look it up.
It's obviously a lot of them had to move on. You have Matthew Lillard from the movies.
Matthew Lillard!
Who's Had to have been the greatest succession to Shaggy that, I don't know, the world could have picked. I mean...
His Shaggy is different than the original, but still, it fits the spirit of the character so well.
And that's so important. I have thoughts in there. They're stuck in my brain.
Just to go over the names real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gray
Delisle
is Daphne Blake.
Mm-hmm.
Frank Welker is Scooby and Fred. Mindy Cohn is the voice of Velma Dinkley.
Mindy Cohn, for those of you out there who were born after the 80s, was the, what was the name of that show? Facts of Life. Thank you. I kept wanting to say All in the Family. I'm like, no, that's way earlier. The heavyset girl from Facts of Life. What was her name on the show?
Checking it.
Natalie Green.
There you go. We don't need to check. We have old-fashioned Wikipedia.
We have Marilynpedia.
Knowledge. Pure at the
tap. She
tap.
was also in another Scooby.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think she does a fantastic job. Again.
She started in 2002 as Velma.
If you had to pick somebody to succeed the old actress who, created the Velma, this is an excellent person to embody that.
Linda Cardellini, by the way.
No,
that was 2002.
She was the one from the movie. So she stood in and did the voice for a little while, but I'm talking about the original actress.
Oh, that's right. Nicole Jaffe.
Yeah. Who wasn't very big in the voice acting world, if I recall. Maybe back then with Ruby Spears stuff, but not anybody whose name you might recognize, like a Tress MacNeille or,
If you do that sort of thing.
Yeah. But yeah, if you had to pick somebody, she's got the sarcasm down, the dry wit. She sounds nerdy without being too nerdy. She can have that sort of, Velmaness, yeah, perfect. And she says jinkies well, which is ridiculously important.
You wouldn't think so, but being able to pull off their catchphrase, each character's catchphrase, is super important.
That's something Linda, whose name is hard to pronounce, the one from the movies, I don't feel she did well. I liked her visually as Velma. I liked most of her Velma portrayal, but her jinkies was just so dry. A little bland.
Yeah.
It was said with a wry tone that isn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, I think she took the character a little too far toward Daria. Which, that's a great direction to head toward, but you want to get off at the overpass. Yeah. But she's in this show too. She plays a character who comes in mid-season 1, who is affectionately referred to as Hot Dog Water. Fantastic character, by the way.
Fantastic storyline with that character.
Yeah, if you want to... There's every character in this series. Even some of the stupid-ass background characters.
Especially some of the stupid-ass background characters.
By the way, if you're looking, it's easy to spot Don Knotts, Mama Cass, just other people from Scooby Doo, the early Scooby Doo movies, the
where
ones
they had
teamed up with celebrities.
Yeah, and they stick a bunch of them in the background.
Yeah, they're just hanging out in the background.
Bunch of the old monsters are either referenced.
Oh yeah, Velma's mom owns like a museum of all the old monsters.
More than that, when Shaggy talks about when Fred talks about his traps, and this is the blank 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 trap, it's often a reference to an original series episode.
That's awesome.
Where they trapped the person with a similar trap. I'm not even joking. I looked this up.
That's so great. It's that attention to detail that's just... I can't stop gushing about it.
Dead air.
I can't stop gushing, and thus we just stopped talking. What do you think was your favorite part of this series? Maybe not a moment, but... what really sold you on this when you were watching it? What made you go, yeah! And just keep coming back for more?
Well, that was keep coming back for more because it was a mystery.
Yeah.
And it just kept leading into the next one. To where it's I don't want to stop watching. I want to stay up 24/7.
That's actually a good way to put it, because the episode-by-episode mysteries were pretty predictable, as the Scooby Doo mysteries are.
But but the overarching mystery was not. It took a lot of turns.
Yeah, and a lot of unexpected twists, and the drama was really good, genuine.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, every now and then it felt a little odd when they got into some of the more interpersonal stuff. Just sort of like, wait, wasn't I watching Scooby Doo?
Wait. Why am I suddenly watching a drama series? Why am I watching
Is this 16?
The West Wing? Why am I?
But you know, after a few seconds, once you get used to it, and honestly, more often I found it was something to do with Freddy, like his acting. I guess Frank is just so used to voicing whatever characters that actually going in and doing this sort of, you know, dramatic role was a bit...
Well, also, I think it has something to do with Freddy's characterization. Because from the beginning of the series, the twist they put on them was Shaggy was still, as close to a stoner as you can get for kids' television. Scooby was still Scooby. Daphne was, you know, a little bit more down to earth, a little bit smarter, which is always nice, but still Daphne. Fred had the biggest departure. And part of that departure was he was just a space lord. He was... he's a bunny ears lawyer sort of ridiculous caricature most of the time. And Frank didn't break that character to go into the real emotional stuff. He just portrayed this broken, like, Aspergy person having a real emotional moment, which always is weird.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. The awkwardness is genuine. Would Fred, the, you know, I don't think he self-describes himself as trapsexual, but someone who is so obsessed with mysteries and trapping, would he sound genuine when he's like, hey, team, I really feel like... No, he'd be like...
Hey, everyone, I have emotions. You need to know them, but,
I don't know how to convey them.
Let's go to the Jamba Juice, and then...
Oh, man.
But it was...
I'm just sitting here basking in the Scooby-ness of it all.
So that's what brought you in was the episode by episode mystery. That's what sort of got you hooked, which is a real departure for the series.
Yeah, they used to be self-contained. There didn't even seem to be any overarching story.
Right.
All right. Sir, what brought you in? What grabbed you and made you stay past the first couple episodes? I mean, the first couple episodes are good, don't get me wrong, but...
You know, honestly, I believe it was the second episode, if I'm not misremembering. That was the one where they went to Gaithersburg, right?
I believe so, yeah.
The Gaithersburg episode where, they just... I mean, it was actually scary. That was the episode I watched that was like, no, boy needs to watch this.
Yeah, it was The Creeping Creatures, episode 2. Originally, it looks like July 2010. That's, where they go to Gaithersburg.
Just between the obvious, what? My brain today. Sorry, listener, we usually record this at midnight when my mind is at full function, but my mother's a diurnal person, and we wanted to have her on the show pretty badly, so...
Because she's a huge Scooby Doo fan.
Like, it would feel wrong to do this without her. The Griswolds. The obvious Griswold family XPs that were going on vacation that appeared like so much over the rest of the series.
They did. They I think they were in the third to last episode?
Something like that. They were just always there. Yeah, because, complete stories everywhere, man, I'm telling you. Spoilers.
Yeah, we're approaching spoiler territory. We're approaching that point where we're not going to be able to talk about the series anymore without spoiling.
But this was just an aside. I just needed to get the cadence out of my head. But yeah, the episode was creepy. The atmosphere was creepy, and it paid homage to not only Scooby Doo. I mean, it is a Scooby Doo show. You kind of have to, but you'd be surprised. Not everybody tries. But also like older horror movies. I mean, it felt like the plot of a horror movie, and the jokes, the humor was just still there. It was a perfect storm, really, of something funny, something scary, and something interesting. And it just touched on all those right nostalgia notes, and it touched on all the right notes of, paying homage to horror movies and things I enjoy, that episode, more than the first one, grabbed me and said, watch. And everything about it. If you watch that episode, nod at the end and go, okay, this is what Eric liked.
Yeah, because he's right. That second episode is legitimately, there's scary moments. They play that up really well. The one that brought me in was actually, the one that made me stick around was actually later in the series, because when it comes to series and stuff, I have ADD. I'll watch like 5 episodes, go to an entirely different series and watch something else, or I'll binge it all at once. Now that I have Netflix and have that ability. But it was actually later. I'm trying to figure out which one it was that really hooked me in. And I believe it was, I think it was the first episode. It was pretty late, but it was the first episode with hot dog water in the amusement park. No, it was earlier than that. Hold on.
What happened that hooked you in more than the episode? Because
no, okay, it was actually earlier than that. I had confused hot dog water with another character. It was episode 5, Song of Mystery. It was the one where the kids were being turned into monsters by K. Horrifico is the name of the monster.
Ah, K. Horrifico.
I love the reveal in that episode. I think it's really funny, and I think it's really well done. And 2, the little kid animations and little kid monsters, they just drew me in. I love that the series did it, and I love the way they did it. And at that point, I was like, I was 5 episodes in, I was like, all right, no, I'm watching the rest of this. This episode deserves watching the rest of this series.
And again, it's just more of what we've been talking about, the care they took in animating, the way they chose to portray everything. Do you have a favorite episode, Marilyn? No?
I like them all.
You liked them all?
All of them.
Too hard to think about?
Yes, and I will be watching them over and over again.
Oh yeah, until Netflix gets rid of it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
This is a rewatcher. This is probably my top 10 favorite series of all time.
I wouldn't say that's a miss, especially if we limit it to cartoons. It's definitely there.
Oh yeah, certainly top 5 if it's just cartoons.
But it was Do you have a favorite episode?
Do I have a favorite episode? I have favorite jokes.
I feel about Daphne the way I feel about traps.
When he was living in a van down by the river. And the entire Taylor Hotner affair was just hilarious.
And that is what good parody looks like.
Yeah.
That was done with the kind of affection that all parody and satire should be done with.
Harlan Ellison was hilarious. And the whole H.P. Hatecraft, lovingly turning everything Lovecraft has done on its ear. If I had to, if I had to pick a favorite, I don't know, man. That's a really tough one. Because there's so much good stuff. I think Marilyn's right. It's just all so good.
I was thinking about it when she said it, and I love Song of Mystery, and I love a bunch of the first episodes.
Yeah, I love the Gatorsburg episode, but I wouldn't say
there's so many episodes later in the series that I love just as much.
It's it's so worth watching.
There's a moment, it's really late in the series, mid season 2 is where it starts up, where alright, listener, this requires a bit of backstory. I have seen parts of, but never watched all of, the show Twin Peaks.
Oh god, this is part of what got me interested in watching the show finally.
And so, I didn't know anything about it. We started watching it recently. We're about, 2-3 episodes in?
I think we're on the 3rd episode.
We're on the 3rd episode of Twin Peaks.
No, 4th.
4th, okay. Whatever. We're after the sitting room, the red curtained room. And there's a point where Scooby, late in season 2, where Scooby's waking up from, he's waking up and it's, a dream sequence sort of thing. And I say, as a joke, this is about to turn into an episode of Twin Peaks. And then it literally does. He goes to the sitting room and the little man who's talking backwards is there. And my mind was entirely blown.
It's beautiful. This was another series that only lasted 2 seasons, which is coming back, listener, if you were ever into that. That's another part of the reason I'm finally sitting down and watching Twin Peaks, even though I should have ages ago. I mean, it's
because
like a perfect
it deserves
storm.
it.
Kyle MacLachlan's there. But you know, this is a series that came out in, the late 80s, mid-80s. Another series which you watched the original run of, I believe. Most of. And...
I can understand that.
Yeah, it's...
Woo, gets a little out there from what I understand.
But, kids are not going to know
what that is. Like, the supposed target audience of this show is not going to get so many of the references in it.
But here's the beautiful thing, okay? And it's twofold. One, you're planting that seed for the future, A kid watches this when they're young, and then when they're 20-something and in college or whatever, their friends are like, dude, did you ever see Twin Peaks? My mom used to watch it all the time. You should check it out. And they get to episode 3, and there's that little man with the same voice, doing the same dance. And you're like, this is from Scooby. Oh my God. And the whole series does that. There's songs they make reference to. There's information they make reference to. And they care. Late in season 2, throwaway episode, there's Undead Ska Band.
Oh, the Undead Ska Band!
And I'm watching it, and I'm like, what they're doing is they're mesmerizing people so that they dance, and eventually they'll turn into zombies. And I'm watching the episode, and I'm like, well, this is funny and cute and everything, but they're not really skanking, which is the kind of dance that you do when you listen to ska. It has an unfortunate name, but they're kind of doing it. They've got the fists balled up, and they're doing the elbows, but their knees are all locked together. It's like skipping in place is what skanking is. And I was like, well, but that's okay, whatever. You never expect a cartoon to do that much research. Literally the next scene. It was Daphne, maybe?
Yeah, it was Daphne who just name checks that what they're doing is skanking. It's how you're supposed to dance the ska.
And then later in the episode...
Because they show some people who aren't mesmerized, who are just dancing the ska on a flashback, and they're doing it right.
Yeah.
They went to all the trouble of researching how to correctly dance to ska, and then making an active decision to have ska zombies dance differently.
And that kind of research blows my mind. But the second twofold point is, some people, some kids, I know you're not super into horror, Marilyn. It gets to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we love horror here in the Two Nerds household, but you have to have a stomach for it, or a heart for it, It isn't for everybody. But some of these concepts can be played with in the safer environment of Scooby Doo. You can have something that is as scary as The Hills Have Eyes, uses a lot of the, information from it, but doesn't go that far. And then, as I was saying later on in life, you watch The Hills Have Eyes and you go, this is another episode of Mystery Incorporated.
And it's also a bonus for people who, like adults, parents who have watched this stuff. They'll sit, their kid will be watching this ostensibly silly cartoon show, and then they will look and see a clear homage to, Saw right there.
Yeah, the Saw episode. That was weird.
But done friendly for kids.
Yeah.
Kid-friendly Saw, ladies and gentlemen.
Kid-friendly Terminator.
Oh, the Terminator dog. That was a good episode.
Oh, man, that was incredible.
I think it was the first time we really saw Scooby go to the dark place.
And it was awesome. I never in my life, I love Scooby, I do, but I never in my life thought I would look at Scooby-Doo and say, look at that badass dog.
But lo and freaking behold.
Oh, man. Alright, listener, Ultimo, my dear, dear friend. We have made this an extra long version of spoiler-free territory. Anything we've told you up to this point has been pretty light. I really don't want to spoil everything, so if you're just nervous about some of the details of the end or something like that, stick around. It's okay. We're not going to go that deep. But we are going to talk about plot stuff. stuff about the overarching plot that I thought was magnificent. And if you want that fabled, legendary, genuine reaction when you sit down to watch the show, now is the time in which you find your phone, pick it up, turn off the podcast, hit like, put it back down. So we're going to give you the usual 5 seconds of silence, because we're nice like that. Do your thing.
All right, that's about 5 seconds.
Yeah, that was your 2-minute warning, basically.
So, spoilers ho.
Mr. E.
Mr. E.
Mr. E was like the 6th Scooby member in this show.
The entire original Mystery Incorporated. That was an amazing it's a secondary story they put in the show.
Yeah. And when we were talking earlier about characters having full arcs, a lot of it has to do with that secondary Mystery Incorporated. But Mr. E especially he starts out as just like this unknown entity who's sending messages.
Just like a voice.
Yeah, a voice. Sending messages to kids. Not to kids, to the kids. Lewis Black, by the way. And as the story goes on, you find out he used to be part of the original Mystery Inc. And, and what happened to them, and that they fell apart, and he's become this selfish, self-centered, destructive person who is clearly gaming after something
big.
Yeah. And he's a great...
Ricky, that was his name. I had to look it up.
Ricky. His arc is so complex. It's very tropey. It's not anything new.
No, it's classic.
But it's new to Scooby Doo.
That's definitely true. And
like just this person who goes from being maybe an ally to clearly manipulating teenagers.
To in the very end, maybe an ally again, but unfortunately circumstances dictate otherwise. It's a really good character arc. And actually the entire original Mystery Incorporated, and even some of the previous mystery groups had good characters. They didn't get the ones past the
Darrow family.
Yeah, the ones past the Darrow family didn't really get much, but the Darrow family at least got a little character. There was one episode, but they got a character arc as a family. And the original Mystery Inc. They all had a story, and it was all in almost every case a very interesting one.
Like, I remember when we finished watching the series, one of the things you said to me was that you were sad it was over. You wish there was more, but at the same time you were glad.
I'm glad it ended.
Yeah.
I'm sad it's over.
This is actually the exact kind of thing I was looking for. I think I've talked about the experiment on the show before. If not, a couple years back, I grabbed 10 TV shows and watched them, the first season. I was looking for something new to get into. And this was the exact kind of thing I was looking for. Something whole, something encapsulated that was rife for fan addition. Something where you could sit around and speculate with your friends. Man, those guys had a skunk. Wonder what they did. Those cool bandito-looking guys. What mysteries did they solve? What about the steampunk ones with the orangutan?
The Benevolent Society of Mystery with their... Oh God, what was the orangutan? The orangutan's name was great. I forget it.
I forget off the top of my head. It was amazing. But that show was amazing.
But I actually wanted to ask, what of the original Mystery Incorporated? Do you have a favorite?
No.
No?
No, I just like them collectively.
Just like as a unit?
Yeah.
I think
I do like that they added stars.
Yeah.
At the time. I think that was pretty cool.
They did, didn't they?
What do you mean?
Like Sonny and Cher, Don Knotts.
Like the homages?
They were on the show as them.
Oh, yeah.
Batman and Robin.
Yeah. in the original run of the Scooby Doo series and in the movies and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool too. And I liked that they maintained that. I liked that the show still had enough drawing power, like Harlan Ellison, who is a freaking major character in a number of episodes, and it's Harlan Ellison. When we were talking about the dwarf, I think he's a dwarf from
Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks, that's him.
That's that guy.
That's the same guy. James Marsters, Jennifer Hale, Amy Acker,
a bunch of really well-known names.
Mark Hamill.
They didn't do Harlan Ellison was the big series equivalent
he was the
to
one
the Don
who was.
He was the appearing as himself, Harlan Ellison, ladies and gentlemen.
Which was nice. But they had a story they wanted to tell. They didn't really have time for them to be running into a whole bunch of celebrities. And I doubt very seriously that...
and, of course, Taylor Lautner.
Well, yeah, Taylor Lautner.
I don't think Taylor Lautner voiced that. I'm going to look that up.
That's what I was about to say, and he didn't.
Nerds.
I don't think anybody involved with Twilight really wanted to be there making fun of their show or their movie, except maybe Rob Pattinson, but they didn't really use him. They had the Taylor Lautner, and they had the Stephanie Meyer, and it was delightful.
What about the? Did you have a favorite character? The first Mystery Incorporated in this series, the ones back with Professor Pericles. Did you have one you liked more than the others?
Professor Pericles.
Yeah, same.
I mean, he just, and I love how betrayed I felt, because you never really quite got. Well, I didn't anyway. Marilyn might have. She's giving me this look like I knew that bird was no good.
Well, I have been watching longer than
you have.
She is more of an expert on this sort of thing.
Well, this show had taken me for so many twists and turns. It had reinforced my suspension of disbelief. I was
like, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to keep changing it.
What is Pericles really up to? And I mean, towards the end, it gets pretty obvious, but
towards the
for
end,
a while there, I wasn't sure. I was kind of curious what was going on.
And, he becomes
acting. Udo Kier. That doesn't have enough expletives because my mom is here, but Udo Kier plays the most amazing parrot villain.
All right. I imagine that the entire oeuvre of parrot villains is somewhat small.
You would be surprised. Parrots are assholes. Something I loved about Professor Pericles is the longer the series went on, the less nice he became, the more he just started speaking in German.
Like, no subtitles, nothing.
Yeah.
He just began speaking in rapid German.
Because he's clearly losing his mind, and... it's amazing!
He was an effective, frightening villain.
Yeah, he was so... and just callous.
It's scary.
It's scary! I mean...
legitimately scary, because, look, a parrot who will inject rattlesnake venom, was it?
It was mutant cobra.
Mutant cobra.
Mutant cobra larvae.
And put it in Mr. E's back to control him because Mr. E was getting uppity. Dude, that's harsh.
There's something so subtle in one of the last 3 episodes. I'm going to get a little specific here, listener. So, if you just want to cover your ears and go la la la, or turn the volume down on your phone or on your YouTube, 1001, 1002. Alright? Did you do it? No? Well, I'm sorry. The episode where they are all in the mine, and Mr. E is talking about another character who's been going on through the series, voiced by Vivica A. Fox.
Cassidy Williams. Foxy, what was it, her original name? I keep wanting to say Foxy Love, and I know that's
sexy. He's talking about, Cassidy's gonna be here. She's gonna show up. She's been gone for too long. Something has to be up. What he doesn't know is that Pericles killed her episodes ago. And he's just got this little parody smirk on his face while Mr. E is clinging to this hope he does not know doesn't exist. It's subtle. It's a throwaway kind of thing. You wouldn't necessarily notice it if you were a kid watching the show. But if you stop to analyze it, that is possibly that is the second darkest thing that happened. Third darkest thing that happened.
He keeps having to, remember.
No, I'm remembering stuff that happens after that. It is the third darkest thing that happens in that series, and it's so small. And you feel for the characters, because you're like, he has no idea. I mean, it's clear at this point that at some point they were in a relationship together, and that didn't go well. So there's more than just fondness for a fellow team member. I mean, this is kind of like Velma and Shaggy in that regard. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And it didn't go so well, and he has no idea, and that's tragic. That's frickin' Shakespearean.
And it's amazing because it's a parrot.
He's the most evilest parrot ever.
Oh, but all right. That actually brings up an interesting question. I know what I think the darkest moment in the series was.
Oh gosh, I think I agree with you.
Do any of you know what you think the funniest moment? Like, what was the joke that got you the best? What was the joke that had you, rolling the most? Do either of you remember that? I don't personally, but I wanted to see if...
Marilyn, do you have anything?
Other than the traps, I mean, that was like an ongoing thing that I wasn't expecting.
Any time that they just pulled the rug out from under us and Fred was like, traps! I want to...
Session with them. That was, a lot funnier.
That was your favorite comedic arc?
Yeah.
Was Fred's...
But one specific, I really can't.
That's hard to say. I mean, can you look at, I suppose it's a lot longer, but can you look at a series like Friends and go, this was my favorite joke?
If I've just watched it, yes, I can.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I couldn't. There's a lot of good ones in there. My brain just keeps saying, that time Fred lived in a van down by the river, and said as much. But I know that's not it. It had to have been something that was like an homage, like when, not Captain Falcon, Blue Falcon was there.
Oh, Blue Falcon!
And they made him this gritty Batman XP, all-star Batman. And I loved that Benton Quest was there, and, was Race there too? Yeah, Race
was there. The Quests were there. Quest Industries was a plot point, no less.
You know what? I'm gonna have to rescind something I said earlier. Gatorsburg was a great episode. That was the episode that made me go, this is a legitimate series. And made me say, boy, you need to watch this. The episode that made me say, Marilyn, you need to watch this, was Scooby's Fever Dream. And the fact that exists might be my favorite joke in the series. Where he's super sick and he thinks he's going to this, mystery-solving team, challenge.
With, the Freaky Phantom.
And Captain Caveman.
And Speed Buggy.
That was good. That was really, really, really good.
Everything about it, the subtle way that they changed the animation to fit the more classic style for the Fever Dream.
They changed the characters' dialogue to fit the more classic style.
The laugh track came back.
It was a really, really, it was a loving homage to the original series, even more than the other stuff had done. It's actually a great contrast to, I think it was the 2003 Turtle series, that also did an episode where they brought,
it was a
movie where they brought in an older version. They brought in the 90s Ninja Turtles, and just spent the whole time shitting on them, man.
They were just, they were rude. They were, they made fun of it. And why are you watching this movie if you didn't see the original? I guess if you're just a Turtles fan and you're consuming all media, but, your target audience here is people who watch the current series, not the current series, but at the time the current series, and the 90s series. So why would you make fun of their childhood so mercilessly? To the point of making the characters not act like themselves.
And it wasn't done with affection. You could tell that they didn't... It's not that they... they remember and love the original series, so they wanted to put their tongue firmly in their cheek and do a send-up of it. No, they just didn't like it. You could tell. Whereas with this episode of Scooby Doo, they went to such lengths to show how much they cared for the original series.
Well, the entire series, both seasons. It's a 2-season series. It's kind of thick, like 25 episodes per season, 26. But
it's complete, and
it's worth watching.
Kind of a rarity.
Well worth it.
Yeah. Well worth it.
I mean, if you had anything, if someone stopped you on the street, a complete stranger, and all the weirdness for whatever reason was not there, and they said, "You, woman in a Scooby Doo t-shirt, you seem like someone who's in the know. Somebody told me to watch Scooby Doo Mystery Inc, but didn't say why. Can you tell me why I should give this show the time of day?"
Wow, that's a good question. It is incredible, and they have kept to the old show
Right.
enough that you're intrigued by that, being an older person like I am.
Sure.
But then it has the modernness that will intrigue younger people, and it's not too scary for even younger, children. So give it a shot, because it is amazing. And
Yeah.
Casey Kasem is still in it.
He is, yeah. He plays Shaggy's dad. I thought that was amazing. We talked about Velma, the Velma from the movies playing Marcy Williams.
Yeah.
And just some of the other voicing. Frances Conroy plays Velma's mom. And I cannot think of a better person. If you do not know that name by me saying it, 6 Feet Under and American Horror Story.
Yeah.
The red-haired older lady. She's perfect. Just perfect. I think she was also Barney's mom on How I Met Your Mother.
Maybe,
I'm almost positive.
I don't remember.
She's a great sport and a great actress anyway, but this character she played, again, this casting was so tight. I cannot think of better people to have played any of these roles.
And me neither, really.
Right down to Amy Acker, what she did with Nova in the last couple episodes. I mean, it's this weird parallel to what's the name of that character from Angel?
Oh, Pretty Little.
No.
No.
Amy Acker was Fred.
Oh yeah, Illyria.
Illyria, yeah. It's this weird parallel to the Illyria character. That, I mean, like, did they script this with her in mind? Did they know she was interested, so they made this role? Or was it just this perfect storm of juxtaposition and use of this talent you have access to?
It was very, very interesting and very well done. And ultimately, it doesn't take itself too seriously.
That's important too, I think.
Yeah.
It's not afraid to make fun of itself. It's not afraid to, give you those tongue-in-cheek kind of jokes.
So because it is Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
Which is good, because it goes to some weird, wild, wacky, to quote Carson, stuff. It does weird stuff.
But they're always, you're right, tongue firmly in cheek, Even toward the end, when, Nova sits up and gives this prophecy, and they're talking about what a thing that is. Fred's like, and that's weird, because she doesn't usually talk. Because Scooby does.
It's not that the dog is talking, it's that this particular dog is talking.
And here's the thing for me. Actually, let's not go out of turn here. If someone asked you the same question, boy, what would you say to them? Why would you tell them to watch Scooby?
What I just said.
Literally everything you just said?
It's interesting, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's well done. And that's not something you can say for every cartoon, first off, for every Scooby-Doo cartoon. And it's worth your time because it loves its source material and it isn't afraid to mess with it at the same time. And I think that's important.
I think I would actually ask questions and give answers. 3 questions. I like to work in threes with this sort of thing. But it fits. Number 1, do you like Scooby-Doo? Number 2, do you like horror movies and horror culture? And number 3, are you capable of not taking everything super seriously? And that question kind of embodies 2 things. 1, can you laugh at yourself? Can you laugh at something you love dearly being poked fun at? And 2, are you flexible when it comes to change? Because, like we said, the change is mentioned originally. That's not something that goes away. These important character moments are present throughout. Halfway through the series, when Fred finds out his dad isn't his dad, I mean...
They don't let that go. That's not like that happens.
Like, he's bitter and sad about it for the rest of the series. Beautiful moments with that, by the way. The Twin Peaks episodes especially. You have to be willing to accept these changes and be willing to laugh at yourself and the show in an ironic sort of fashion. If you say yes to those 3 things, then why are you talking to me?
You should have already given this a shot.
I think, we've rambled on, and I feel like we've even barely scratched the surface of this.
Well, I mean, it's not like...
Well, what can you do, without just...
We don't want to go episode by episode. I'd rather you watch the series, listener. It takes a little while, but nothing bad. Tell you what,
52,
replace something really depressing on your current Netflix binge list. Like, insert series you're not actually all that fond of here. And do Scooby Doo instead. You won't regret it.
Well, even if it's not something you're not that fond of. If you're watching Breaking Bad again, or Mad Men, or Orange is the New
Really
Black,
anything again.
Any of those shows that are just sort of
awful
tearing on your heart, making
awful
you feel
people doing terrible things.
You know what? Do a thing for you. Take time out of your day and watch an episode of Scooby Doo. 2 months later,
you won't regret it.
Yeah, you'll feel better about a lot of stuff, and you'll have watched really great media that's full of a lot of love, and then maybe 3 of us sit around here talking about it for about an hour.
And full disclosure, put in me the desire to, once this podcast is off, literally go turn the series back on.
I have to put up a podcast, so I don't get to do that. But, anything closing you want to say, Marilyn? Anything you want to leave the listener with? Anything at all?
Watch the Scooby Doo episodes. I loved them.
Okay, here's a great question. I didn't even think of this until just now. You've watched so much Scooby Doo media. I would probably say more than I have, because I know you've seen some of the movies I haven't, and you have Cartoon Network on every now and then. I don't. Where would you say this ranks? Maybe not numerical list, but is it as good as the original? Is it better?
Well, the original is, got a fun, little place in my heart there, but...
Yeah, you can't really kill nostalgia.
Right. But, and that's why the second one, this one that we're talking about now, not the second one, but it is so good that it's right there, like, at least equal to it.
Oh, that's nice.
That's high praise.
Yeah, that is high praise. So, you've heard this series compared favorably not only to the original series, by someone who watched the original series when it was the original series.
Someone who has the genuine
expertise.
reaction.
Yeah. Someone who, by all nerd cred, has the right to tell you what is good and what isn't.
as far as Scooby-Doo is concerned, she is the expert here, and she has compared it very favorably.
And you've heard it compared favorably to Batman the Animated Series, which you can't swing a dead cat on the internet without finding somebody praising at the altar of Batman the Animated Series.
I'm a fully vetted fanboy of that series, and I cannot, for the life of me, find something to dispute with that sentence. It is that good.
So, yeah, head over to your Netflix queue. It's still on as of the uploading of this podcast. If they took it off before the end of October, I would criticize them for being silly ninny heads.
Say, at least wait till November if you're going to take it off.
Yeah, but...
wait till Halloween is over, man.
Both seasons, you can shotgun this in about a week if you're not doing too much.
Anything else? Final thoughts? Jerry Springer-like motivational quotes? Anybody?
Just a reminder that we're doing bonus podcasts as much as possible through this month. Just to apologize for the week we missed. We love you, listener. We don't want you to be without our dulcet tones for too long.
Well, I wouldn't exactly call my tones dulcet.
I wouldn't either. I was trying to be nice. And remember, we are also keeping up this spooky theming throughout Halloween.
Which means he will continue to do those voices, yes.
But I don't know. Any last words?
Everything is better when nerds talk about it.
Let's get hardcore!